Oh, hey, everybody. Oh, I forgot to turn my lights on. Yeah, that's better. I was like, why am I well, I was sitting in the dark. So, I want to do a quick little breaking news commentary, something a little different, something new. Um, I'll probably break off and do a separate launch video, maybe talk about the markets and things, but everything's kind of going flat right now, consolidating. If you look at the charts, you just see them getting thinner, so not much there. But I've had friends and texts and just things blowing up in social media, our world, about two topics, right? Like Trump, right? And so I want to talk about that and this whole Saudi thing. And it's just so much fear happening out there. And excuse me, it's been a long day. So I want to talk about it and bring a little bit of perspective. And there was even like a local thing where some police officers chased somebody and the shots were fired and the guy finally crashed after a high speed chase in Oregon. And I'm like, don't we have better tactics than that? Why do we have to fire at fleeing vehicles? It's just, I don't think a police officer should pull a weapon unless we're dealing with life-threatening scenarios. But that's just my opinion. But let's talk about Trump. So let's see what's in the news. I just brought this up, and the indictment calls for former president calls for defunding the FBI, and District Attorney Bragg, blah, blah, blah. Trump faces criminal charges, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of folks are confused. The judge has nothing to do with these charges. He's just presiding over a grand jury reviewed initial evidence, right? They're sequestered for this, and they decided that there was a case to be tried. So here we are, right? And the judge doesn't decide the outcome of the case. A jury does, unless I guess he were to waive his rights to a jury, which would be I think would be bad tactics. But the point is there's a due process, and if the judge is unfair or whatever, like Trump is talking about, then there's a process for that. In fact, there's a whole training course about how to be a good pro se and how to deal with bad judges or bad witnesses or hostile witnesses, or how to report a judge and how to hold a judge accountable. I mean, to take it to social media and think that the court of public opinion is going to work in a court of law is naive. And I think his lawyers are probably going nuts. However, no one's asking the more interesting questions. So let's just not, all to me, this is all political theater, and here's why. All right, so like some 300 people showed up in New York, not thousands. So like, why is he even in the news anymore? Because it's profitable on both sides of the aisle for Trump to be in the news. They don't want this finished. I was wondering, well, all the charges like could have been brought against him, like, how about involuntary manslaughter came to mind because of people who lost their lives because, the evidence kind of reveals that he kind of called his militia forward and they were all expecting him to declare martial law and deputize them and take over America. I mean, that's not even a question of what the people believed. Not just one or two, in mass. And there were guns there, and there were caches of guns, and there were plans, and there were different types of plans, and this was all under his leadership. These people weren't protesting; they were showing up to get marching orders, and he literally gave them to them. It's like in video evidence, and it wasn't a peaceful gathering. It's crazy. It's crazy to me to think about the various spins on this, but at the end of the day, he's being prosecuted for hush money paid to a porn star. If you take any classes in bullying, like bullying in the workplaces, right? Domestic violence. So here's what happens. When an abusive personality type gets away with their abuse, they become more abusive. And that's what I saw happen with Trump. And I'm not a never Trumper. I'm embarrassed to confess that I voted for him in 2016. Why? Well, I didn't go to his rallies. I listened to his interviews, right, on the different shows and stuff where he was asked questions about what's your solutions for healthcare, and he gave a really good answer. Later, I pretty much assessed he adopted Bernie Sanders's justice platform with a Republican spin without making any commitments to any policy changes. But what he said, the only reason why he won is because he appealed to independent voters. A lot of folks don't get that. They think this whole evangelical thing and just they don't have enough votes. They never did have enough votes, but they're a very rabid voting bloc. Okay. In order to win, he required independence. In fact, the DNC is probably responsible for his election more than anything else. Why? Because of what they did to Bernie Sanders. Oh, you're one of those. Well, no, Trump said it. He just kept saying, look at how corrupt the Democrats are. Look at what they're doing to Bernie Sanders. I would have loved to see Sanders versus Trump because they were basically the same platform under a different language in terms of intentions. And people want a justice platform, right? The difference is if Bernie Sanders probably would actually worked on it versus trying to line his own pockets like he did of Trump is a great con man, a great salesperson. You may argue with that. You think he's the son of man, and that's fine. I've seen the arguments on both sides, but I'm telling you from someone when he said, we're going to bring in the best minds, I'm thinking, oh, he's probably going to pull out, he hates Obama, right? So he's going to pull out that report that Obama and the Democrats forbid to be even read or even mention the word single payer, right? Do you guys remember that? I remember that. And Harvard did it for free. Best minds in America, right? I think, oh, well, good. We'll have a businessman come in and he's going to bring in the best minds. Well, he didn't bring in the best minds, right? He didn't investigate anybody. He didn't drain the swamp. He didn't do nothing. He took over the swamp. He was swamp lord for 4 years. That's what I nicknamed him. I knew that he had lied to me within the first 45 seconds of his acceptance speech. And most people were confused. Go back and rewatch it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. His first words out of his mouth, just everyone was like, what is this? Yeah, because that was just the beginning of crazy, crazy stuff. Had I seen any of his rallies or any of that sort of stuff, I would have seen what he was doing to energize his base, and that would have been a big turnoff for me. But but now what? Well, he's lost the independent vote, right? That's why he didn't get reelected. You realize that, right? It wasn't any of the weird stuff. He tried to cheat. He tried to disrupt the mail system. He launched frivolous lawsuits all over the nation, which was a form of election tampering. I mean, he should be in jail for tampering. But none of these things are being brought to bear yet. Why is that? Well, they want to keep him as a viable threat. Why? Well, two reasons. Okay, so like as soon as okay, the moment it hit the news that he was publicly indicted. Wasn't it within like 12 hours or something? He received $5 million of donations. I received texts about his illegal indictment. He's innocent and trying to get money out of me. Why? Because for some reason, both parties think that I'm one of them. And I don't know why, because I'm an independent. I kind of lean more towards justice democracy because it makes sense. It's what we all want. It's what they want. No, whatever side of the aisle you're on, I just refer to the other side of the aisle, whether you're on the right or the left. When I say they want what you want, but they're using different language. And each side is being manipulated with different language. Yeah, crazy stuff. But it's about the money. You can't get rid of Trump yet. You got to scare the crap out of the Democrats and Antifa and the far left and all the Sanders. You got to get them to just start ponying up their money. If he's out of the picture, it's like, well, We don't need to donate. You guys don't see it? Is that it's to me, it's that obvious. It's like he is a tool for fundraising right now. He is the best fundraising tools for the Democratic Party ever. What about the Republican Party? Well, they got some serious problems. They've destroyed their credibility, in my opinion, and the people that want violence and civil war and all sort of stuff, for Jesus, well, they don't understand the military tactics, and just because someone was former military doesn't mean they understand military logistics, planning, the literal structure of the United States as a country, our geography, and anyway, Bo, the fifth column, he does great investigative reporting. He kind of looks he's younger, but he's got the long beard and everything. He kind of looks like he's from the South. He is from the South, and but he is like the best voice of reason. These stuff, military tactics, assessments, and stuff. And his videos are like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes each, and they're just amazing. But he's got a whole team behind him. So I love his commentary because it really makes sense. And if he says he's biased, he'll say, I'm biased. In fact, he did that recently by giving his opinion about this stuff too. And he gets comments from people who are politically against his perspectives. He's earned the respect because he's like the only place where they can actually get actually clear-headed news. It's not spun either on the right or the left. So anyway, that's where it's one of the places I go. Plus he's entertaining. I like his points. I try to learn from him, but I'm like 11 minutes. So he's probably made 3 videos that are just powerfully impactful. I'm just still kind of babbling about Trump. So I'll get there. Takes practice. So when I look at this stuff, it's just like, well, yeah, we got to keep him in the news, and it's always, he's running. He even if he's in jail, he can still run for 20. I mean, just all the headlines that are being fed to the left are crazy, and then all the headlines to the right is we got to save Trump, donate, buy T-shirts, save, save, whatever. We got to save America. Just and that, you know, there's just not as many preachers that are involved with the con as there was before, and to their benefit, I think they really believed in some of the stuff they were selling and or pushing or whatever. We could get into an ideological conversation about the concept of God and deity and a little bit of common sense and what the Bible actually does say and things. But why bother, right? For me, I'd just start bringing out, well, is God all powerful? Yes or no? Okay, boom. And doesn't everyone? How does this apply? How is your organization and your platforms deploy the golden rule in everything from your homes to your communities to your policies to your governance? Oh, yeah. Oh, your God needs money. Oh, okay. Well, not all powerful. Oh, we need to save America. From what? Doesn't your God already own it all? Aren't you all indigenous to planet? I mean, the conversation dies so hard and so fast. I stopped having these conversations like 20 years ago. It's just 'cause I was getting too bored winning them. And then people are like, they're just quivering like, and I don't think that was an effective approach to having a conversation. I've gotten better at helping people think about things. Well, David, you're an atheist. Well, no, I'm not. I've experienced amazing things in my life, and I've experienced them while exploring different belief systems throughout my life. What do you think POTU stands for? It stands for Path of the Unlimited. Why? Because I can find the presence of deity in every single belief system, including the ones that are full-blown cults that were designed with a individual motive to do evil stuff. I can find the presence of deity there too. I have a whole process for that. I know. I gotta publish it. I can hear like my friend Dove, who's in Summerland, on my shoulder saying, "Yeah, David, you promised me before I died that you would publish it." Yes, I'll get there, my friend. No, that was just metaphorical. She would be whispering in my ear if she was doing that, but I didn't actually hear that, just to be clear. But I can talk like that happens. How do you think these people speak in tongues and stuff? You think that's magic? You think that's Did you not read where you're supposed to be doing that and why? Well, every time you see someone speaking in tongues, right? on in public, they're violating a directive. Just saying. Well, I know there's the thing about the translation stuff. I've yet to see an accurate translator. It's usually just people going down and whatever to gather credibility. Oh, look, the Holy Spirit speaking through that person, because that's what we're born and raised to think what it talks like, and that's what it's about. I have a way better filter than that for sorting stuff out. Yeah, I didn't want to get into that, but yeah, it's a big part of what I do sometimes. It's all about empowerment, right? I have a new shtick about that. I refuse to be enslaved to some old dead people who had interesting ideas based on the corruption of their times, and the people that slaughtered them for their ideas that would have called out their leadership created prophecies out of them things and turned them into martyrs and say, well, this is going to happen sometime in the future, and therefore you should listen to me today. Great stick. I can't believe we're still falling for it in 2023. Maybe AI will help us sort it out. All right. I know a lot of folks will hate what I'm saying, and it's not even about creating an argument. It's just like, I can't prove you wrong, but I could probably show how you're violating just simple basic logic within your own religious texts. That's tough. It's complicated. You prefer stuff that's really, really easy-minded, simple-minded stuff. I get it. That's why I don't really engage much anymore. And part of it is because I have a trust that there is a divine out there. And my opinions on it are kind of irrelevant because I trust that that divine has the power to reach you. We'll just excuse the one talking burning bush and two talking donkey. Let's just say that whatever it takes for divine to reach you probably can if it's important enough for the divine to do so. And which means that such an unlimited power doesn't need prophets or spokespeople on its behalf. A lot of folks don't think about it. Anyway, I had a deep conversation just last night with a deep spiritual friend of mine, and I think I blew their mind. Something I've been doing for over 30 years on that one. I said, well, part of the truth from a Judeo-Christian perspective is in the first two words of the Lord's Prayer, because everything we've built up after that doesn't support what was taught. And if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you. Just say it out loud and then think about it and then figure out, well, then why did all this other crazy shit happen? Well, good question. Why is Trump not in jail? Why is Trump still a possible presidential candidate? Money, power. He's a tool at this point. You know, he's probably been offered okay, conspiracy theory here. And I have no idea, but maybe he's been offered a deal to stay out of jail if he plays his role through all this in order to just soak America for money on both sides of the political aisle. There's my conspiracy theory. That would make a hell of a lot of sense to me. Right. And neither side will get what they want. Right. Neither side will get what they want. Which brings us to Iran, Saudi, China, the world currency, US dollar. The world's coming to an end. It's blowing up all over YouTube. Here's what would happen. De-dollarization is underway. Blah, 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 blah. Some people say the reason why we went to war is because Saddam Hussein was going to establish a oil mercantile based on like the euro or something. Now, there's some interesting things happening. So aside from Russia's stuff, Russia actually did something interesting. They put their currency back on a gold standard. They're the only non-fiat currency in the world. Interesting. China and the USA. Well, China sort of depends on the USA for a lot of things. I know we're enemies, but yeah. What happens if you don't have a viable enemy in the United States? Well, let's find out. Latest here. Um, US, um, US supercarrier. So there's another one of these going to be launched in 2024, and there's some really good YouTube stuff. This thing is a stunning piece of technology. Well, if we don't have an enemy, then we can't justify this. And this is a big part of our economy, like it or not. And it makes some good points. The whole hypersonic technology, we're behind on that. Are we? Really? You think so? I don't think so. I think, okay, first of all, whatever you and I think we know about all that, we really don't know. But what we do know is one of the biggest reasons for that new supercarrier is its power output and redundancy. What does that mean? Well, dealing with a hypersonic weapon with another hypersonic weapon is a function of time and distance. And what is superior to a hypersonic thing that flies at maybe 5, 6, 10, 12 times the speed of sound? How do you defend against that on a pop-up attack? You need something that moves at the speed of light. Yeah. Does Russia and China realize that they're developing inferior weapons? Of course they do. Why? Because they need a viable enemy so that they can propagandize why they are building their own aircraft carrier, why they're continuing to invest in their own hypersonic missiles so their population can cheer them on and continue to go to work and be good little worker bees and pay their taxes or whatever their process is over there, right? This is what I see happening. I see, well, China, Iran. Well, Iran is, what is Iran doing? Well, Iran is demonstrating to the world that it has created some pretty okay, what do they call them? Suicide drones, right? Yeah. And it's being demonstrated. If you notice that everything in the Ukraine is, we're demonstrating all the new tanks. Everyone's talking about the new tanks, the new weapons, the new different type of munitions, how the tanks are designed, why this tank is superior to this. So you know what? The Soviets are watching this too, and the guys, wow, we have some tactical design flaws in our tanks as well as our strategy. And guess what? Everyone gets to spend more money on the backs of the workers. Whether you're a US citizen worker, peasant, or you're a Russian worker, peasant, where you're conscripted and forced into military service. In the United States, we call it the draft. However, there's a difference. So, like the United States, if you dodge the draft, right, you are dishonored. You might get arrested. You might spend some time in jail. If you're like Muhammad Ali and you just make some really powerful statements, which are still being played to this day, that it's like, well, makes a lot of sense, right? That's what happens. In Russia, however, or China, that's not what happens to you. All those six Saw movies or some of these horrific things that we see about happened during World War II in Germany, torture, mob kind of stuff. We're not coming after you. We're coming after your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your uncle. Well, that's how they function. See, all those Russian soldiers that are going into war, if they have family, their only option is to go and die. And that's what they've been doing. If they return home, unless they return home severely injured, most likely their family's going to pay the price. Those movies where the mobster has kidnapped your wife or your daughter and you have proof of, whatever? Well, that's kind of how these regimes operate. That's how fascism operates. I don't know if not to bring Trump back up, but if you heard his his rhetoric about targeting the families of the enemies, well, that's the same ideology. That's a fascist ideology. It's an un-American concept. It's immoral and an unethical thing. But that's how they conscript their warriors. And people, because they love their families, go to war what they know is wrong because they don't have a choice. And, the Russian people are just like, they've been born and raised. They have propaganda, you know, uh, they deal with it. We talk about it freely. Well, this is the propaganda. It's just like, well, we do that here, right? I don't know any country in the world that has made propaganda or information fraud a felony. Well, and what passes as important for national security of the United States is just a fancy way of saying, let's bury it so it can't show up in a court of law. We don't have any civilian oversight of the use of the word classified for documents in national security. It's kind of ridiculous. It's our government, but it's not. People don't have the right to know. We have checks and balances, sorta, but we really don't, not anymore. It's been kind of subverted by very intelligent people and laws and playing a long game, and I get it. And where's it all going? We're just perpetuating an additional system. So what's going to happen? Well, what's this U.S. currency thing? Well, it's a great scam that we created. The Federal Reserve, some private families solved the problem for the U.S. government by renting us money. That's how that works. Everyone knows it, right? So, when you have a dollar bill, it's a Federal Reserve note. It's a note. It says it's the money is loaned at interest to the United States government. And U.S. taxpayers, that's you and me, pay interest on the fact that this money exists to an organization that profits our ruling elite in America. Very simple. Just is what it is. And they've kind of gone global, right? Yeah. So the United States needs to pay bills historically. Wouldn't it be nice? You receive an unexpected bill. Maybe you didn't manage your budget good this year or this century, whatever. Oh, got a bill to pay. Yo, print me up some money. Prints up some money. They don't even print it up in the money anymore. They just, how much you need? 800 billion last week or the week before, whatever it was, last month? Sure, 800 billion. There. Let me know when you need more. And it instantly, by the second, starts being charged interest that we have to pay. And who pays all that? We do. Labor, small business, right? The workers. You notice wealthy people generally don't work. Their money works for them. They don't work, right? I mean, we have so many peasant controls in place. And then one of my biggest things that I complain about, and I think I write in at least once a week using ResistBot, saying I want my right. I want to stop being discriminated against as a citizen based on my financial status. Like independent, what's it called? Qualified investor laws, right? You know how wealthy people play the stock market, right? See, they invest in things before that bell rings, right? And that initial public offering that you buy into, the moment that bell rings, they've made their 18,000% return or whatever ungodly amount of profit they made. And why can they do that? They're qualified investors. That's how the game works. You're not allowed in because it's not safe for you to participate in a guaranteed win at that level. You might become rich like in 5 seconds. Yeah. Your rights have been subverted. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You don't get to pursue happiness. You know what's worse in crypto? Right after Mr. Trump got elected? Well, suddenly we all got kicked off from Binance, U.S. citizens, along with all the Iranians and the Chinese citizens. Kind of interesting, right? Not allowed. Not supposed to. Binance is literally being sued by the Commodities and Exchange folks for giving American citizens leverage for sneaking onto their system with VPNs. That's what that's all about. How dare you give our citizens leverage? Really? Isn't that their effing business? And isn't it my effing business to spend my effing money that I worked for and pay taxes on the way I effing want to? Excuse me, government, get out of my life. Get out of my bedroom, please. And you know what? Get out of a woman's body, for God's sakes, for F's sake. There's no justification for the crap going on in America today other than it makes money and it keeps us little people fighting over meaningless stuff. I published a really cool thing recently on Medium about guns and gun control and things, and I think one person has read it. It really addresses the core issues, but no one wants that. They want to raise money. They want to have their organizations. They want to have, it's just a system of exploitation, and we're all been born and raised into it. We've been indoctrinated into it. I call it peasant mindedness. Got to break free of it. Because with leverage, you can do what I've demonstrated can be done. You can start with zero and become wealthy. But I have to change the model because I only go to like 20 missions. I need to go to like 21 or 22 missions, probably 22 to 23 missions to take in consideration after tax. Because in order to qualify with cryptocurrency or the commodities markets, you have to have liquid $10 million. I don't even know what it's called. It's a special classification. You know who has that kind of money? Really already wealthy people, hedge fund people, right? But they don't want you having that. Just saying. It is what it is. And, we are so enslaved by the mind game and the peasantness that even when any of us become wealthy, looking at the billionaires of America, we still are plagued with the problems of being born and raised with peasant-based ideology. So even if we come to wealth and power, we live our world, we make our business decisions not based on the golden rule, right? Not based on universal, sentient, human civil rights. We base all of our decisions on fear and scarcity. And therefore, we manufacture it. And this is why we do not have peace on earth. And I'll just say it, all of the religions, all of the ideologies, all the philosophies, they're not all bad, but they've all failed. Not a one of them has been able to establish themselves without violence. Not a one. They may teach other things, but you go in the history, their foundations, their root, pretty violent. Yet humans prior to the previous epoch, and if you don't know what that is, that's a whole other conversation. Most folks don't even believe that because they only believe the world's like 4,000 or 6,000 years old, but it's older. We know this. We've had very wealthy billionaires try to prove, and it just, what are you doing, dude? Won't mention anybody out of Michigan. They're no longer on the planet anyway, which is kind of crazy how people become obsessed with their religious ideologies and need to prove it when it's like, well, we already proven that it's not that. So why are we still talking about stupid stuff? We do. We just do because that's kind of oddly our nature. So, yeah, we had the golden rule back then. The golden rule, do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. Every single major belief system that I am aware of has a version of it. Yeah, it does. It's kind of weird. I'm working with AI to write a book about that. Anyway, it's a whole other concept. But yeah, so we're never going to achieve peace on earth with this process, which is what DDTC is all about. I would like to have a global organization dedicated to universal, sentient human civil rights based on the golden rule. I know. Sounds kind of boring. Everyone wants to go to war, right? I get it. But if we had, I don't know, 333,333,333 members from all around the world, we're all chipping in $5 a month, $10 a month, $100 a month, whatever. We established, I have a whole model for this nonprofit kind of thing. But next thing you know, we'll train people on ethics. We'll train the next generation of wealthy people or any of the existing ruling elite who also want to get out of the cycle that they're caught up in because they don't want this world anyway. I mean, Kim Jong Un, right? He's like he is like the fascist demonstrated leader who his family just is the only one that has made that concept work at a horrific expense of his people, right? Talk about birth to grave mind control. It's pretty amazing what has been established there. It's a religious model adopted from Christianity. If you want to if you want to save a lot of research, you can do that. Don't trust me. Validate anything I've said. Don't argue with me. Go out and validate yourself. I won't respond to your argument. I don't bother anymore. I just throw it out there to inspire you to prove me wrong, and in the process, you go, "Oh, shit." Now you're faced with a choice and a decision, and I spent my life doing that. I've been wrong a lot. I don't mind being wrong. But he's the ultimate, fascist dictatorship. It's quite amazing, the model that he has and how he runs his country with fear and terror. But you know what? All of his propaganda shows he doesn't wanna be known for that. He wants the people that have to bow to him to be afraid, very afraid. But his image that he wants to the world, he wants to show a modern country, a clean country, happy people. When they show up to, like Olympic events or whatever, pretty girls in short skirts dancing, smiling. Look at how great North Korea is. What does he demonstrate? He wants to demonstrate, well, look, my people are happy. They're free. They have civil and human rights, but they don't. But he knows he wants that image. So even the worst example of evil leadership by anyone's definition, probably including his own, wants to at least be viewed. And throughout history, we rewrite history, how we treated slaves, how we treated the indigenous. We want to paint ourselves as heroes. Why? Because we know what that looks like. It looks like respect, golden rule, universal civil rights for all sentient beings. Why do I say all sentient beings versus just human beings? Well, because of religious concepts, even America, we said, well, they're not really human. Just look at the color of their skin. They were born to be a beast of burden. I mean, if you go back and review the stuff that was argued about in Washington on this topic, it's embarrassing. And it was all a religious argument. And that's embarrassing to everyone that it subscribes to those religions. And I could get into it. I can get into anybody's religion. I can also point out some really cool, good things that happen in all the religions. But you know what? At the end of the day, they all still do some pretty evil stuff that we have proven isn't good, doesn't really work, always ends badly. And for some reason, our species needs to go through cycles of shit ending badly in order to learn and evolve forward. It's kind of weird. But maybe with AI, we can have an independent concept that can assess all of our data for us and give us results that we can trust as being unbiased. Of course, we have to be able to interrogate the code independently, and it's going to take intelligent people that we trust to do that. And right now, all the people who are in power and control are really scared because the younger generations are smarter And they're inventing stuff like money, and that genie went out of the bag without them even noticing the implications of cryptocurrency. Now they have to deal with it. But I guarantee you, every one of these wealthy people, even if they're totally isolated, right? All the Russian oligarchs suddenly just figured out that the hard way, that by supporting stupid stuff, their freedoms got restricted, fleeing for their lives, assets being frozen. Suddenly they're having to deal with all sorts of shit. And for what? For Ukraine? I mean, seriously, all these very wealthy Russian oligarchs got to be saying, what the F were we thinking? And what do we do now? What, you want to launch a nuclear war? Now what are you going to do? Go into your bunker and starve to death? Or just you, all of you wealthy folks with your bunkers, you realize you will die in that bunker before the world becomes habitable again, and the odds are against your offspring from surviving. And without access to resources, mental health resources, and medical resources, the current technology doesn't support. I mean, this, I did the situational ethics in high school, right? Not everyone's going to live forever. You're not going to have the resources to train the next generation that's going to need to survive before you open the door. I mean, seriously, I don't even know what you idiots are thinking about. I just don't get it. Doesn't make any sense to me. But we're too busy responding and reacting because we're born and raised with a lens of fear and scarcity. Well, you should be afraid, David. Of what? Death? I can't stop Putin from pressing the button, and no one in Putin's world can stop the United States from pressing their button. The odds are their stuff will never get through, or what does get through is not going to be that big of a deal comparatively to what we will do to them. So that's why he doesn't press the button, unless he goes insane. He's got quite an ego, right? Yeah. There's that whole narcissistic thing. Well, if I can't win, then I'm going to blow up everybody. And if I'm going to die, I'm going to make sure everyone goes with me. There's that whole psychology at play over there. Can't control it. Nobody can. The truth is, I think we have the technology, more conspiracy theory, that if we wanted to have ended that, if we wanted Putin to have, I don't know, gone into a diabetic coma in the middle of the night and just died peacefully, and no one can really understand why. We have the technology for that, or some kind of, I don't know, micro drone that was some new development out of Iran, got hacked by Russian hackers and then wiped out all the senior staff, including Putin. I mean, there's so many ways that I think the United States has the capability, as well as other countries around the world. The moment he mentioned nukes, the only reason why was still alive the next day is because they thought, it's a good testing ground. We get to get rid of a lot of ordnance, and this threat, we get to ramp up production, and we all make the most money, and stimulates our economy, which we all need right now after COVID. We need some kind of military thing, and we're all kind of bored with the desert thing. And this lets us test things out in a new environment. And we've always wanted to test our weapons against Russia, and stuff. And so everyone on all sides is getting in to test their older stuff, and they're learning from that to, gauge the real stuff, which they're kind of, we're sending over what, 70s and 80s technology, which is still superior. We outspend what, all the rest of the world 100 to 1, right? At least. So there we 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 do it so we can have that dominance. If we wanted to rule the world, we should have done it after World War II. We could have. But a religious ideology that gave all of our power to create what's next to some ancient writings instead of creating what's next for all of us. It's almost evil. It's not almost, it is. It was like we gave away our free will to create something good. Instead, we created mechanisms for exploitation. It's just kind of weird. No one's going to listen to this, but I felt inspired to do it. So it would be really wild if something like this went viral. Who knows? At least someday when our planet is a smoldering hole and some intergalactic intelligent species discovers our planet saying, wow, there was an intelligent species here, maybe their advanced AI and processing power will go through all of our YouTube videos and everything. They'll say, who's this David guy? Why didn't anyone listen to him? Yeah, gotta have a dream. All right. I think I'm done with this line of thought. My 5-minute video is 46 minutes, so it is what it is. Crypto. What's going on with crypto? Well, that's a good question. Let's take a look. Come back. My computer's doing some new thing. I just had an update. I'm using an Apple for my home system. It's a really cool system. It's great for processing and doing video processing and audio processing and things. But what's going on with crypto? Yeah, it's dipping. Not much. Nothing really surprises me when I look at the daily and I look at the 12-hour. I see everything just kind of getting thinner and thinner. What does that mean? That means it's preparing for breakout. We'll break out or we'll break down. Don't know. We're kind of overdue for the breakout up, but there's the United States has literally pulled out all the stops trying to hurt this industry, which I think is illegal. It's tampering. Tampering. Yeah, it's tampering with financial markets. It's any one of us, if we were to do this, I mean, if Elon Musk tweets about something that impacts the market, he's threatened with lawsuits, legal action, and criminal action. But I guess if our elected government leaders do it, then I guess it's okay and legal, I guess, to just do absurd shit. Imagine trying. So other countries are developing actual regulations, and instead of developing actual regulations that address this market, they're trying to protect something that was invented post-Depression era and World War II stuff. They're trying to apply rules and regulations to something that didn't even exist when those rules and regulations were created. Those things really don't apply, and everyone knows this, and everyone jokes about it, and they come across as so serious, but yet they're abusing their power, these agencies and the elected leaders. It's just like, really? And then the rest of us in the world, the little people, have to deal with their criminal acts. There's no way of prosecuting a federal agency, right? I love the JP Morgan dude. He regrets buying Washington Mutual. Bullshit. That prick made 18,000% ROI based on valuations within seconds of that acquisition, which appeared to be in the works a year in advance. And Washington Mutual continued to say no. And please explain me how the common stockholders of a publicly traded company had all the assets sold for an 18,000% discount on valuation without going through a bankruptcy court or something. Turns out that this law that was never used after the Great Depression, those conditions were never met. It was one big lie and fraud. It was one of the biggest heists in history. Did anyone go to jail? No. A lot of lawsuits? Yeah. A lot of people's pensions get wiped out? Yeah. So what? Yeah. It's like rich pricks are, it's all this stuff. I keep saying this in the crypto world. It's like already rich pricks don't have enough. That's what happened with Luna C. Here's a guy that invented a great protocol, was changing the world of finance and DeFi. And he had to do a little backroom deal that hosed Luna. Really? Why? You're already a billionaire. What are you doing, dude? The guy with FTX. What more could you want? You're young, you're from a rich family, you literally have your own little private corporate sex commune in the Bahamas. And you're worth $28 billion, and you've actually created something really, really cool. But instead, you have to create a backdoor personal trading account and crap like that and do all that weird shit. Why? And now you face going to jail and the commune, sex commune, that's all over. You're going to be joining maybe a different sex commune, but you got money, daddy's got money and influence and stuff. I mean, seriously, why? You got all the money in the world and it's not enough. Well, that's where DDTC and POTU comes in. I'd like to teach these people how to have happy lives and be okay with being wealthy and then find purpose in their lives and their wealth based on something they all heard the terms, but they have no idea how to apply it to their lives. It's called stewardship. We don't have good stewards in power. And we have people inheriting vast amounts of wealth when their parents did not groom them to be good leaders. So even our ruling elites and the dynasties are creating, we're getting, what are we getting? We're getting just the weird shit that you always get with stuff. I don't know. I know England kind of went through it, whole monarchy stuff, the crown. It's like, well, they actually have some systems in place where they try to work in leadership and things, but it just is, you're violating people's rights. It's all those train loads of wealth being shipped out of Africa to support the wealth of a family. Well, the people are promised the Commonwealth, but they're living in slums and they're the workers, so they get a wage. Forget the fact that they were just probably living for thousands of years without having any of that nonsense. But hey, what did it take to suppress the Zulu nation? It took a hell of a lot. Modern technology won that one, but it was an abuse of power and abuse of use of technology. It was a violation of the Golden Rule, and it was a violation of universal rights because guess what? They're indigenous to planet Earth, just like the invaders were, the colonizers. We don't want to call them invaders. When does it stop? If it doesn't stop, I have a theory about prophecy. I don't think it was prophecy. I think it was some of the smartest people of their day who had literacy, because literacy wasn't, it still is not a thing, even to this day in 23 globally, right? And they were trying to warn the leaders, listen, what you're doing is wrong. It's morally and ethically wrong. If this continues, eventually we're going to destroy ourselves. I think even back then, without AI, without the knowledge we have in the modern culture, they could peer into the future and say, listen, this is always going to end badly. They've seen it end badly in smaller regional areas. And they just said, well, if you guys actually win and dominate the world as we know it, you're going to just end up I mean, it was just logic and reason. The people in power saw it as a threat. So what they do, they probably slaughtered the people, made them martyrs, called them prophets, and then they had people hired because they were in control to write prophecies that kept them in power and kept people afraid, right? And then therefore they can control through fear. Because the concept of a prophecy doesn't make any sense with the concept of free will. I mean, literally, if you ever played like Civilization or something, you have your little people, they're programmed, they just live out their lives and it's all predetermined. And then you are the deity and then you tell it to do certain things and they have no choice. Some people will say, well, yeah, we are simulation day. We don't have a choice. People have embraced determinism. I kind of reject it. I test it every once in a while. I wake up and then do something different. But someone say, well, yeah, but it was already determined that you're going to do that different thing, David. I don't think so. So then why do we turn over our power in the present to someone who's long dead? I think they were all warnings. And then people who wanted power con people in power, or religious con people, or political con people, or or the unholy marriage between religion and politics. Con people crafted these things to rule with, and then just keep getting regurgitated and recycled, regurgitated. How many times are we going to predict the end of the world? Times thousands of years. I mean, allegedly, way back 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was walking the earth, and shortly afterwards, everyone just stopped working because, well, they were waiting for him to come back. We're a little overdue. I don't think it was a prophecy. I don't think that doesn't make any sense. Why bother? Why bother? I mean, if it's all predetermined, then why would anyone go to hell? They're just doing their job, right? It's stupid. No. And I don't think any deity is stupid. Do you? I don't think so. I don't care. I know it's just crazy. So we have all these prophecies and little different spins on them around the world that justify things like the Russian Orthodox Christian Church telling Putin, "Hey, we need God wants Ukraine back and Mother Russia." And so there we go, all over again. I only saw one news article since the beginning that talked about that, just one. Kind of weird. I thought they were godless communists. No, they're conservative. You're observing a conservatively Christian-run country. They might have been godless communists before the wall came down, but they became conservative Christians. At least their power brokers did, through the Russian Orthodox Christian Church. And that Orthodox Christian Church goes back. You have your Eastern and Western Orthodoxy stuff, right? It goes all the way back to Rome. So it's been around a while. No one wants to talk about that. And all the U.S. cults that get written up in the news and all this other sort of stuff, they usually just knows, you hear their initials, right? LDS or whatever. Not to call them out specifically, but there's the original folks that kind of branched off, the EAT. No, was it the Stay Sweet, Pray and Obey crowd? But they never used the word Christian in the title, even though that was the name of the group. They just used the name, and then kind of later in the subtitle, they talk about how it was a Christian thing. They just went underground. We've actually violated that whole organization's, the Mormonism, that whole religious belief system. We, the United States, violated their religious freedoms by forcing them not to practice polygamy as part of their religious doctrine. It was a core religious doctrine of theirs. And why did we do that? Well, one man, 10 wives is a powerful advantage for power. Can't have that. So we didn't even honor our own principle of freedoms there. And then when you look at the whole concept of Stay Sweet, Pray and Obey, and how they had birth to grave mind control of the women, it's an incredible documentary of mind control and what it takes, and even that fails, right? And what do you got to do to settle a woman down? Well, she starts getting a little ornery around age 12. Well, that's about when the Virgin Mary in the Bible was knocked up. So better get one in her hard and fast to settle her down, and it works. Right? You guys just haven't made the connection between the conservative movement in America and the control of women, and by putting them in their place through pregnancy. If you haven't figured that out, you probably need to go watch that to understand that this is not a new doctrine. This is not a new concept. This is something that has been developed over the last epoch, and not all cultures operate this way. The peaceful cultures, the loving cultures, the people that were excelling in arts and sciences and stuff like that. Well, they made one mistake. They had incredibly desirable cultures that functioned, and they didn't feel the need to have a military to protect it, and they were conquered. And the people doing the conquering couldn't figure out how they couldn't reproduce it. They conquered these beautiful cities and all these people, and oh wow, why isn't this working for us now? Because they knew power. And anyway, it's just It's part of the POTU thing that I bring to this whole project. All right, I've rambled on now for my typical hour, so I'll wrap this up. I don't know if this was interesting or not, but I feel better. I don't have to think about it now. And at least I can say I did what I could. I said something. Yeah, I usually say something afterwards. I think I said it all already. So, where do we go from here? So when I see the political, I don't really turn into the news stations. I like watching Bo the Fifth Column. Today, if I want a real news type thing, I like the David Pakman show. Um, I don't really watch. I find the mainstream news. Well, Fox is the mainstream news. They're the largest news station in America. They're the most successful one. They are literally mainstream news. I think their producers and their owners find it hilarious that they're speaking to an audience who thinks that they're all minorities when they're actual majorities, and the majority feels like they're a minority because of the mind control tactics, and yet they don't realize that the concepts for which they allegedly are in alignment with are all the concepts and all the leadership that has led us up to the craziness of our U.S. history was all dominated by these religious ideologies which want to destroy the US Constitution and write a Christian version of it. But they don't want to look at the history. They want to believe their own propaganda. Nothing new. I would think that any US citizen in America would know better, but they don't know better. Why? Well, because our whole concept of educational curriculum hasn't required a baseline of history, factual history. Since when is it a civil right to lie to your children? Shouldn't your children have a civil right and access to the truth of history, religious history, physical history, political history? Shouldn't that be a civil right of children? We're protecting parental rights to indoctrinate children with propaganda and information fraud. No one talks about that. Why? It's unpopular. Children have the least rights and least power, and they're literally abused mentally, emotionally, physically, manipulated. Their parents aren't required to have any kind of training or certification prior to becoming parents because it's just natural law, and therefore they have the right to do things which ends up perpetuating abuse and violence and domestic violence and all sorts of mental emotional issues when these children become adults. And this goes back thousands of years, and we justify it. I don't know. And those that do get it right, they're just such a minority that they can't have any influence, and they're probably treated as weird. It's kind of sad. I feel for our kids and the kids of our world because every single one of them was born innocent, and most of them are until it's beaten out of them some way, or they sent to school and it's beaten out of them in a different way, maybe a nonviolent way now. But it wasn't that long ago when teachers were hitting children, spanking children, swatting children with rulers and stuff. And heaven forbid you were an indigenous being forced to go to a U.S. sponsored Catholic school. They buried a lot of the students. It's coming out in our entertainment. History is entertainment. It's the only way we want to watch it. And it's horrible. And yet, I'll watch some of these things, and I'll go online to research the history, and I'm in tears. I'm like, wow, this actually happened to a human being on U.S. soil by Christians, or by the U.S. government, or by people sworn to protect and serve. I'm like, what is going on? This is not the world that I was born and raised into. I was born and raised in a public education system and was taught false witness, false histories, lies. My civil rights as a child were violated by the education system. We got problems. Information fraud should be a felony. Freedom of speech is an individual right, but it's not a right to fraud. There's a difference. If a business publishes false facts knowingly, it's called fraud. They can be sued and shut down. Why we can't do that with politicians selling us their right to a job that we pay for, but we are unable to prosecute them if they lie on their resume? We're unable to remove them from power if they got elected under false pretenses. We can't just halt them and reverse the damage that they do as soon as we identify the fact that they lied on their resume and their application. We found information fraud and propaganda as part of their process, and we have no recourse as a population, and we pay for it through our labors. That's a violation of a lot of things, isn't it? But we are not even having the conversation. I see crypto as a way out until my rights to access it have been removed from me and from you. Technically, it already has been. It's just not being enforced very well. How dare they tell me that I am forbidden to participate in a global revolution because I'm a U.S. citizen with my own money? How dare they? Well, they dare. And we're all too busy working to pay rent. And we're about to have the Mississippi scheme melt down. I'm more concerned about that than the other stuff. So the United States is big. We've got huge resources. We have science. We have tremendous capability to take care of each other if we choose to. But I think I haven't done the analysis yet, but I think if I take a look at all the money in U.S. banks doing nothing compared to all of the debt in the United States and the world, I think the planet could have a jubilee. It's a biblical thing. It's supposed to happen every 7 years, but I think that is the only way the wealthy of our world will escape the end game of the Mississippi scheme. And they need to figure that out. Because if they allow this to continue, we're going to have all sorts of civil unrest and violence and just unnecessary human suffering. While money is accumulating and doing absolutely nothing because of lack of stewardship. See, we've adopted a context of ownership instead of a context of stewardship. And that's one of the core problems of our species development over the last 6,000 years. The previous epoch, the humans had a concept of stewardship, I think, based on the evidence that is being revealed. They just didn't have the science that we have today to have been able to predict some of the things that drastically wiped them out. But there's evidence of them and their beliefs and how they ran things, and it's pretty impressive. So maybe we and our world as we know it has to come to an end, and for us to wake up and say, oh, what we're doing here is wrong and let's do something better. But I think those who are in wealth and power, they are afraid to do the right thing. And through that lens, they're going to end up harming themselves and everyone else along with them because they're indoctrinated into a concept of ownership instead of stewardship. All right. That's all I got, everyone. David out.